Hey everyone, my name is Juan David. I'm CEO of Teilur Talent, and we're experts in hiring some of the best remote DevOps engineers from Latin America. Our clients range from Silicon Valley tech startups to established multi-billion-dollar tech companies in the US and Canada. And thanks to this background, today I'm going to address the 5 most ineffective and surprisingly common questions asked during DevOps interviews. So if you're in the process of hiring a DevOps engineer and you've considered asking any of these questions, don't worry, we're here to guide you on how to rephrase them for a more meaningful and efficient interview. So let's dive right in. So for our first question, you might have heard some hiring managers start things off with, can you explain what DevOps is? Now, asking an experienced DevOps engineer to define DevOps can make you look like you're not entirely sure about the role that you're hiring for. It's like asking a recruiter if they know what recruiting is. It makes no sense. You wouldn't ask this, right? So here's a better way to approach it. Try asking, can you describe a project where you implemented DevOps best practices and the impact it had? This question moves the conversation from simple theory to actual application. You're focusing on the real-world experience of the candidate, which is really what you want to assess. So remember, the goal here is to understand not just their knowledge, but how they can apply it to the role that you're recruiting for. Now, moving on to our second question. We often hear this one in interviews. What specific tool or technology are you proficient in? Now, this one seems like it's a reasonable question, right? But the problem is that it's a little bit too generic, especially for DevOps roles where tools are always changing and evolving. What you really want to evaluate is not simply just knowing what tools the candidate knows, but understanding how they use these tools in the bigger picture of continuous integration, delivery, and deployment. Here's another way that you can phrase this question. For example, could you tell me about a time where you had to choose a specific DevOps tool or technology for a specific project, and what were the factors that influenced your decision? This question actually does a couple of things. So number one, it gets the candidate talking about their experience in a more practical context, and it's gonna give you insights about their decision-making process. And then the second thing is that it shows their ability to adapt to different situations and how they approach problem solving. This is an actual very important aspect of operating as a DevOps engineer. So make sure with this question, you get a good idea of their practical application of their skills and their adaptability, rather than just simply letting them list tools that they've used. You're looking for someone who can think, who can be a problem solver, and not just someone who's gonna be able to go through a specific checklist of popular tools that you've heard of. So moving on to our third question, and as a hiring manager, you've probably seen this one, maybe from colleagues, or maybe you were asked this question when you were hired as a DevOps engineer. And the question is, can you code in specific programming language? Or more often than not is, can you code in Python? Now, I understand it's important to know if a candidate has the technical abilities to do the job, but this question is just too vague. It's because DevOps is not just about coding in a specific language. It's about understanding the technical operations of an entire DevOps ecosystem. So here's a better way to frame this. Ask it in a way that you evaluate how the candidate is connecting their technical skills with best practices in DevOps. So for example, you can ask, have you used Python in your DevOps processes? And can you give me examples of how you've integrated it with other tools or systems? When you phrase a question that way, not only does it help you evaluate their coding ability, but it's also gonna show you how they use that skill in the broader DevOps context. Remember, it's all about how they combine their technical skills with a broader understanding of DevOps best practices. You can also ask something like, how do you stay updated with the latest updates in Python and other DevOps tools? This can give you insights into their commitment to professional growth. All right, let's move on with question number 4. This question is not as common, but we've still seen it, so we're pointing it out here. And the question is, what's the worst mistake you've ever made in a DevOps role? So the problem is that even though the question seems straightforward, it misses the point because it puts the candidate in an uncomfortable position where they might feel they have to talk about failure. However, you as a hiring manager, you can reframe this question in a way that's more constructive constructive and insightful for you. Try asking instead, can you share an experience where you faced a significant challenge in a DevOps role and how you addressed it? This version of the question changes the focus from mistakes to actually evaluating the candidate's problem-solving skills. So keep in mind, for this question, it's not about what went wrong, but how a candidate navigated through this challenge. You're gonna be able to understand if they learned something valuable from this experience, and also you're gonna be able to assess how this mistake or this challenge turned into a learning opportunity for them or for their team. So remember, don't throw candidates gotcha questions that are gonna make them feel uncomfortable or anxious. So when you're asking tough questions to a candidate, look for answers that are gonna help you understand how they demonstrate resilience, a growth mindset, and their problem-solving thinking skills. Now, we left the worst question for last, so please don't ask this question. We see it with a lot of other types of engineers. It's really not helpful, and the question is, can you work effectively under constant high pressure and tight deadlines? And the problem with this question is that you're suggesting that you have an organization where the environment is of high stress, and it might not even be that that's the norm in your company, but that's what you're making the candidate believe. So instead of asking that question this way, reframe the question to gain more meaningful insights into the candidate's work style and their abilities to meet deadlines. Consider asking instead, can you describe how you manage and prioritize your tasks during periods of increased workload or tight deadlines? This question actually shifts the focus from an assumed high pressure environment to the candidate's ability to manage their workload effectively. Remember, what you want to hear from the candidate is how they organize their tasks and how they delegate responsibilities. It's also an opportunity for you to understand their approach to teamwork and communication under pressure. So make sure that you don't ask this very vague question of, can you handle stress? But instead, ask them for examples of how they were able to manage tight deadlines or working under pressure as examples in their previous roles. And that's it. Make sure you don't ask these questions to a DevOps candidate during an interview, and by avoiding these questions, you're likely going to be able to find the right candidate, and you're going to be able to evaluate really the skills that you need for your organization. Also, if you're in the lookout for remote DevOps candidates, that's what we do at Teilur Talent, so check out tailurtalent.com. If you enjoyed this video and you want more content on the intersection between DevOps and recruiting, please hit that subscribe button. Also, if you want more tips about recruiting DevOps engineers, watch our step-by-step guide on how to conduct the best possible DevOps interview.